Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Beyond World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Channa.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar. On the show today, U.S. President Donald Trump and several other world leaders signed a Gaza ceasefire deal during a summit in Egypt. But a number of issues related to the 20-point plan brokered by Trump alongside Egypt, Qatar and Turkey remain unsolved. It is now to see what happens next. We will be tracking that for you on the show.
And also on World DNA, Ukrainian President Zelensky said that he will be visiting Washington again. It's going to happen this week. And he's going there to see if US President Donald Trump will discuss air defenses and how to put more pressure on Russia. We'll be bringing you the latest on that front as well. Let's start with the headlines. This is World DNA.
Donald Trump confirms he will host Zelensky at the White House later this week after the Ukrainian leader said he was headed to Washington to meet with his U.S. counterpart on Friday.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a tremendous day for the world. It's a tremendous day for the Middle East. And you can see that this is probably the greatest assemblage of countries.
Donald Trump hails tremendous day for West Asia as he and regional leaders gather in Egypt to sign the declaration meant to cement the ceasefire in Gaza, hours after Israel and Hamas exchange hostages and prisoners.
The army confirms that bodies of 4 hostages handed over to Red Cross by Hamas were brought to Tel Aviv for identification. Hamas still holds the remains of 24 deceased hostages they have agreed to return.
India is a great country with a very good friend of mine at the top, and he's just done a fantastic job.
Donald Trump praises his strong ties with India and Prime Minister Modi at the Egypt summit, directing his comments at Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Trump says he thinks India and Pakistan will live very nicely together. Looking at Shehbaz Sharif for a reaction.
Venezuela announces closure of its embassy in Norway days after opposition leader Maria Corina Machado receives Nobel Peace Prize, citing foreign service restructuring. Also closes its embassy in Australia.
Rescuers race to reach communities cut off by severe floods in central and eastern Mexico, where 64 people have died and 65 remain missing. Torrential rains trigger landslides, destroying roads and bridges.
Madagascar's embattled president André Rajoelina says he is in a safe place following an attempt on his life, ignoring calls to resign after spiraling unrest, dismisses report that he has fled the country.
US and China have initiated reciprocal port fees on each other's shipping firms. Effective today, this move escalates trade tensions, with analysts warning it could disrupt global shipping routes and increase costs for industries worldwide.
Elon Musk's SpaceX launches its 11th Starship rocket in a test mission to demonstrate the giant vehicle's reusable design for lofting satellites and eventually taking humans to the moon and Mars.
Cape Verde seal a spot in the 2026 FIFA World Cup after defeating Eswatini 3-0 at home. The island nation becomes the second smallest country to qualify for the tournament.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has praised what he described as a tremendous day for West Asia.
And this was following the signing of a declaration aimed at solidifying a ceasefire in Gaza alongside other regional leaders in Egypt. In a crucial first phase of the U.S. brokered plan to end the war, Hamas returned 20 living Israeli hostages, while Israel freed almost 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees.
Now, Trump said that a ceasefire deal has opened the door to rebuilding Gaza.
The rebuilding is maybe going to be the easiest part. I think we've done a lot of the hardest part because the rest comes together. We all know how to rebuild, and we know how to build better than anybody in the world.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said the Gaza deal closes a painful chapter in human history and sets the stage for a two-state solution.
I reaffirm our support and aspiration for the implementation of this plan, creating the political horizon necessary for the implementation of the two-state solution, as it is the only way to achieve the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian and Israeli peoples to end the conflict and live in peace.
The European Council President Antonio Costa said that Egypt summit marked a day of hope for peace, while stressing that achieving a lasting solution will require continued international commitment.
And my presence here, the presence of all the leaders here, is to express a clear engagement and commitment to the success of this plan. And this is the most important.
Among those also in attendance, French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Now, Starmer said that the UK is prepared to help monitor the ceasefire in Gaza and even assist in the disarmament of Hamas, drawing on lessons from the Northern Ireland peace process.
Now, the disarmament of Hamas remains a key point of contention, along with a scope and timeline of Israeli troop withdrawal and the future governance of Gaza Strip. Asked when phase 2 of negotiations on a peace agreement will begin, now Trump replied, "It started." And well, to give us more details on this, our correspondent Susan Teherani has sent us this report from New York.
President Trump marked what he called the end of the Gaza war with an abrupt tour of the Middle East, celebrating a massive hostage prisoner exchange that freed 20 Israelis and nearly 2,000 Palestinians. In Tel Aviv and Gaza, the scenes were mixed. Relief for families reunited, but deep grief in a region scarred by 2 years of war that killed tens of thousands of people. Trump became the first U.S. president in nearly 2 decades to address the Israeli parliament, calling the exchange the historic dawn of a new Middle East. He then joined leaders from Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar in Sharm el-Sheikh to sign a joint declaration urging an end to the fighting, though the document's terms remain unclear and neither Israel nor Hamas signed it. World leaders and representatives who traveled watched on. The president also met Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas for the first time since 2017. But major questions remain. Will Hamas disarm? Who will govern Gaza and rebuild Gaza? And can this fragile ceasefire hold long enough to turn Trump's peace deal into lasting stability? The coming weeks will test whether this is truly peace or just a pause in a devastating cycle. Susan Teherani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
It was a rare moment of relief and joy for both Israelis and Palestinians as Hamas released the remaining 20 living hostages.
They were held in Gaza as part of they were swapped, of course, as swap deal that happened for nearly 2,000 Palestinian detainees. On the other side in Tel Aviv, thousands gathered in Hostages Square to watch the release. They cheered when a military helicopter carrying freed hostages flew over the crowd on the way to a nearby hospital. Live footage of their release and their family reunions was broadcast on large screens around the square. The plaza has been the center of the national campaign for their release for nearly 2 years.
The released Israeli hostages were reunited with their families. Videos showed emotional moments filled with tears and uncontained happiness.
After 2 years, my big brother, Alon, is back home. I saw him today when he back from Gaza, and it was so exciting for us and for Alon. We jumped on each other as we first saw each other, and from now we need to do everything to get our life back, and it will happen.
However, not everyone was so lucky. Amid the jubilation, Israelis also laid flowers in front of the National Forensic Center to honor the memory of the 4 deceased Israeli hostages whose bodies were released by Hamas.
There was solemn silence and a salute from the Israeli security forces as the bodies of 4 deceased hostages arrived at the Forensic Institute in Tel Aviv. Israel's military said that it had escorted 4 coffins containing the remains to Israel and that those remains were being identified. Hamas says recovering the remaining 24 bodies could take time as not all burial sites are known.
On the other side, the Palestinian detainees arrived in Khan Yunis and Ramallah after being released as part of the prisoner-hostage swap deal. Israel released 250 Palestinians serving long terms in Israeli prisons and 1,700 others detained in Gaza during the war after the release of the 20 living Israeli hostages.
The joy is incomplete because we left behind our brothers, friends, and prisoners in a very difficult situation in terms of health and the way they are being treated. There was beating and insults. It was difficult in every way, and may God be with our people in Gaza. In the end, whatever happened to us was nothing compared to what is happening in Gaza.
The release of hostages and Palestinian detainees was a pivotal aspect of the first phase of the Gaza Accord, and this should lead to a surge of humanitarian aid into Gaza and a partial pullback of Israeli forces from Gaza's main cities.
Now, later phases of the plan will have to address thornier issues such as Gaza's post-war governance and Israel's demand that Hamas disarm, which the group has rejected. But for now, many families on both sides are rejoicing to have their loved ones back. The Gaza war has come to a pause, and the final chapter of a generation-defining war is now taking shape.
In a high-stakes peace mission, US President Donald Trump met with Israeli leaders seeking to seal a lasting agreement, and the visit is being seen as a defining moment that many are calling the decisive end game in Gaza. This next report tells you more.
After weeks of unyielding and brutal warfare, a moment arrived that many had feared might never dawn. 20 hostages held captive deep inside war-battered confines of Gaza walked free under the glare of cameras and the watchful eyes of negotiators. This breakthrough comes as US President Donald Trump is in West Asia for what's being described as a decisive peace mission. This is his first visit to Israel in 8 years and his first since returning to the White House earlier this year. In Tel Aviv, Trump finally declared the Gaza war is over.
For so many families across this land, it has been years since you've known a single day of true peace. But now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over.
Upon his arrival, thousands of supporters erupted in applause, waving hats emblazoned with the words, "Peace, President." Trump met with families of the freed hostages, while crowds gathered at the Knesset's visitor gallery proudly wore white caps declaring Trump the peace president. Inside the Knesset, Trump delivered a stirring address declaring this is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death.
It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
His speech received frequent applause and standing ovations, with many Israeli lawmakers expressing gratitude and praising his role. However, he was heckled by Knesset members Ofer Kasef and Ayman Odeh, which led to a brief disruption. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lauded Trump's contribution as miraculous and unprecedented.
Donald Trump is the greatest friend that the state of Israel has ever had in the White House.
Praising Trump, the Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid said Trump deserved the Nobel Peace Prize.
The fact that you were not awarded the Nobel Peace Prize is a grave mistake by the committee. But they will have no choice, Mr. President. They will have to award it to you next year.
But on the ground, Gaza faces a long, daunting road to recovery. The scars of war are everywhere, with cities reduced to rubble and families displaced.
When we heard there was a truce, we couldn't wait to see our house. We found it reduced to rubble. There is no life at all. When I saw the house, I broke down and started crying. I didn't know what to say.
US troops, about 200 in number, have been deployed to southern Israel's Hatzor air base to assist in overseeing the ceasefire agreement and to coordinate the safe and organized distribution of aid. These troops are not entering Gaza but are part of a multinational task force, including personnel from Egypt, Qatar, Turkey and the UAE, working under the US Central Command. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Ukrainian President Zelensky is set to meet US President Trump at the White House.
Now, this meeting comes following a statement by Trump recently where he hinted that he is considering supplying Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles, which could be used to strike targets inside Russia. Now, both leaders have also held a telephonic conversations regarding the same.
Speaking on his trip to Washington, Zelensky has said that the main topics of discussion are going to be air defenses for Ukraine and long-range possibilities to pressure Russia.
Yes, and I will have meeting with some companies in the US because there are some needs, what we need now, because of different format of attacks, even not those attacks which Russia already did. Yes, but we have to prepare in any case. So, it will be helpful. And so, the main topics are air defense and our possibilities with long range to pressure on Russia.
Now, Russia has, however, vehemently opposed the idea of the U.S. delivering Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine, warning of severe consequences and escalation. Former Russian president and current deputy chair of the National Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, warned that it could result in disaster for all the sides, and the delivery of the missiles would not be good for anyone.
Now, while speaking at the NATO Assembly, President Zelensky said that Russian President Putin can be forced to make peace like any other terrorist, is what he said. Now, this statement comes after Hamas accepted a Gaza peace deal brokered by US President Trump, drawing parallels, that's what Zelensky was attempting, with Russia between Gaza and with the Gaza war and Russia-Ukraine war. Zelensky urged the international community to mount pressure on Putin to end.
Now, meanwhile, the Ukrainian military shelled residential settlements in the Donetsk People's Republic reportedly 15 times, killing 1 and wounding 3 civilians. Now, Madagascar is on edge. President Andry Rajoelina claims he is seeking shelter in a safe space following alleged assassination attempts.
And Rajoelina claims that he is still very much in Madagascar. That's a claim being contested. But with demands for his resignation growing, he's appealing for constitutional order to be maintained. His address marked the first time he's spoken publicly since reports surfaced of his possible escape from the island nation. Rajoelina claimed that since late September, there have been multiple attempts on his life. He accused members of the military and political class of plotting a coup d'etat.
The unrest began as protests over power and water shortages, but quickly escalated into a broader anti-government movement, largely driven by youth-led demonstrations. Amid the turmoil, Radio France International reported that the president was flown out of the country over the weekend on a French military aircraft.
French President Emmanuel Macron voiced deep concern about the situation in the island nation. He declined to confirm rumors that France has evacuated the embattled leader Rajoelina.
I would like to express our deep concern and France's friendship towards the Malagasy people. Basically, I have 2 messages. I think it is very important that constitutional order and institutional continuity be preserved in Madagascar because the stability of the country and the interests of the population are at stake, so that the international community can continue to help. Because if the international order were broken, we know what would happen.
Rajoelina appeared increasingly isolated after losing the backing of Copsat, an elite military unit that had helped him seize power in the 2009 coup. Now, over the weekend, Copsat joined the protesters, refusing to open fire and instead escorting thousands of demonstrators to Antananarivo's main square.
The unit later declared it was assuming control of the military and appointed a new army chief. On Monday, a faction of the paramilitary aligned with the protests also seized control of their command, naming a new chief during a formal ceremony attended by senior government officials. Three economists have jointly won the 2025 Nobel Prize in Economics.
American Italy Joël Mokyr, France's Philippe Arion, and Canada's Peter Howitt have been bestowed this honor for their work on technology's impact on sustained economic growth.
79-year-old Mokyr won one half of the prize for identifying the prerequisites for sustained growth through technological progress, while Arion and Howitt shared the other half for their theory of sustained growth through creative destruction. Now, the trio's work answered questions about how technological innovation drives growth and how sustained growth can be maintained.
Mokyr, who is a professor at Northwestern University in the United States, used historical sources as one means to uncover the causes of sustained growth becoming the new normal. Arion and Howitt then examined the concept of creative destruction, which refers to the process when a new and better product enters the market. The companies selling the older products lose out.
After winning the Nobel for Economics, Arion called on Europe to learn from the US and China, who he believes have found ways to reconcile competition and industrial policy. Arion said, and I quote, "In Europe, in the name of competition policy, we became very anti any form of industrial policy. I think we need to evolve on that and find ways to reconcile industrial policy in areas like defense, climate, AI, biotech, where we are very good."
Well, formerly known as Sveriges Riksbank, Prize in Economic Sciences is the final prize to be given out this year and is worth 11 million Swedish crowns, and that's about $1.2 million. The laureates will receive their prizes at formal ceremonies in Stockholm and Oslo on December 10th. The date is the anniversary of the death in 1896 of Alfred Nobel. All right, now it's time for a very short break on World DNA. We'll be right back with more news and updates on the other side. Now, Pakistan's Peshawar High Court delayed the oath-taking of newly elected Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Chief Minister Sohail Afridi, adjourning the hearing until Tuesday. We'll get you all the details on that story on the other side.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at yowon.com.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna. I'm Shivan. Let's start with the headlines at this hour.
Donald Trump confirms he will host Zelensky at the White House later this week after the Ukrainian leader said he was headed to Washington to meet with his U.S. counterpart on Friday.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a tremendous day for the world. It's a tremendous day for the Middle East. And you can see that this is probably the greatest assemblage of countries.
Donald Trump hails the tremendous day for West Asia as he and regional leaders gather in Egypt to sign a declaration meant to cement ceasefire in Gaza. This is hours after Israel and Hamas exchanged hostages and prisoners.
Israeli army confirms that bodies of 4 hostages handed over to Red Cross by Hamas were brought to Tel Aviv for identification. Hamas still holds the remains of 24 deceased hostages they have agreed to return.
Today, again, I would like to nominate this great president for Nobel Peace Prize. Mr. President, I would like to salute you.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif backs Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize yet again during Gaza Peace Summit in Egypt, lauding him as a man of peace and a leader the world needed the most at this point.
Venezuela announces closure of its embassy in Norway days after opposition leader Maria Corina Machado receives Nobel Peace Prize, citing foreign service restructuring. Also closes its embassy in Australia.
Rescuers race to reach communities cut off by severe floods in central and eastern Mexico, where 64 people have died and 65 remain missing. Torrential rains trigger landslides, destroying roads and bridges.
Delhi police say they have registered an FIR and launched an investigation into an alleged sexual assault case involving a student at the South Asian University campus in South Delhi.
Tensions escalate between the US and China. Beijing vows to fight to the end after President Trump announces a 100% tariff on Chinese goods, the sharpest trade move in decades. China says it's ready for battle but open to talks.
Elon Musk's SpaceX launches its 11th Starship rocket in a test mission to demonstrate the giant vehicle's reusable design for lofting satellites and eventually taking humans to the moon and Mars.
Nadine de Klerk gets South Africa over the line again as they recover from another top-order collapse to beat Bangladesh by 3 wickets at the Women's World Cup.
India has condemned Pakistan and the UN General Assembly for cross-border terrorism and child rights abuses,
citing attacks on schools and civilians in Afghanistan and India. Indian lawmaker Nishikant Dubey also defended India's Operation Sindoor as a legitimate response to terrorism. Dubey, who is part of an Indian parliamentary delegation to the UN, slammed Pakistan for violating the agenda of the UN Office for Children and Armed Conflict. He also urged Pakistan to protect children within and beyond its own borders.
We categorically reject their attempt to divert global attention from the grave abuses committed against children within its own borders and corroborated in 2025 Secretary General's report on CAC, as well as its ongoing cross-border terrorism. beyond its borders. The same report elaborates Pakistan's attacks on schools, particularly girls' schools, on healthcare workers, and highlights incidents along with the Afghanistan border.
And Nobel also criticized Pakistan's cross-border terrorism in India and Afghanistan, saying it is highly hypocritical for Pakistan to speak at international platforms after indulging in such acts. Defending Operation Sindhu, he said India carried out well-thought-out strikes on terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir to weed out terrorists.
India's exercise its legitimate right to defend its people against terrorism and bring its organizers, the perpetrators, to justice, and the conducted targeted strikes in May 2025 under Operation Sindoor against 9 terrorist hubs. In contrast, Pakistan deliberately targeted our borders, villages, resulting in civilian deaths, including children. Pakistan must look itself in the mirror, stop preaching sermons in this form, act to protect children within its own borders, and stop targeting women and children across its borders.
The Peshawar High Court delayed the oath-taking of newly elected Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Chief Minister Sohail Afridi.
They have sought the governor's opinion on the matter, adjourning the hearing until Tuesday. Jailed former PM Imran Khan's party PTI had petitioned the court seeking the appointment of an official to administer the oath.
The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf on Monday called on the court to intervene promptly, with Party Secretary General Salman Akram Raja and the Additional Attorney General stressing that the province had been without a government for hours. The petitioners added that following the resignation of former Chief Minister Ali Amin Gandapur, the provincial cabinet was automatically dissolved.
In response, Chief Justice S.M. Atiki directed the Additional Attorney General to verify the Governor's Secretariat whether the resignation has been officially received and whether the Speaker's summary requesting the administration of the oath has been delivered.
Salman Akram Raja told the court that the Speaker was present in person and the oath-taking summary was already been sent. Now, the Additional Attorney General noted that under Article 255, the oath could still be administered if the Governor refuses.
However, he admitted it was still unclear if the Governor had received the summary.
Now, the Chief Justice said that the Governor's input was essential before the court could proceed. Now, the court needed the Governor's response before acting.
Raja argued that the oath of a chief minister is different from that of assembly members, but the judge stood firm, saying an oath is an oath, whether it is for a chief minister or an assembly member. Now, the court postponed the hearing until Tuesday.
Earlier in the day, PTI's Sohail Afridi was elected as the new Chief Minister of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, as we mentioned earlier, and during an assembly session that witnessed an opposition walkout. Speaker Babar Salim Swati, he continued the voting process despite the boycott. Afridi secured 90 out of 145 votes, while opposition candidates from JUI, PMLN and PPP, they received none.
Now, while the Gaza-focused summit in Egypt discussed peace in West Asia and reconstruction of the Palestinian territory, it seems it was not the only thing on the mind of some world leaders.
Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto was heard asking US President Donald Trump for meeting with his son Eric in comments picked up by a microphone. Trump and Prabowo appeared to be unaware that a live microphone was recording their conversation, and the two were talking in the Egyptian resort city of El-Sheikh after Trump delivered remarks to a group of world leaders gathered for the summit.
We look for better place. Yeah, all of them. Okay.
Thank you. I like that. We don't need that.
It was not clear in the audio whether the two leaders were referencing the Trump Organization or any business deals involving the president or his family. Eric Trump and his brother Donald Trump Jr. both serve as executive vice presidents of the Trump Organization, which has business operations involving real estate, hospitality, and blockchain-based ventures.
The company operates a golf club outside the Indonesian capital, Jakarta. Another property in Indonesia, a golf club and resort in Bali, is listed on the website as coming soon. The Bombay High Court has pulled up municipal corporation and state authorities over pothole and manhole deaths and poor state of roads in Mumbai city.
Now, the court was hearing a bunch of petitions on deaths and accidents caused by potholes and open manholes in India's financial capital. It flagged the issue of civic apathy in maintenance of roads. The High Court observed that open manholes and bad roads are a regular occurrence and hence accountability needs to be fixed on the persons concerned.
The court said that there can be no justification whatsoever for bad and unsafe roads and that it is high time that compensation be awarded to victims or their families who have suffered deaths or injuries on account of potholes. Only then will it serve as a wake-up call for the agencies concerned. It also added that unless those responsible for pothole-related deaths and injuries are made personally accountable and compelled to bear monetary liability from their own pockets, they will not understand the gravity of the issue.
Now, the court has ruled that state authorities must provide compensation to victims of accidents caused by potholes and open manholes. In the event of a fatality, families will receive rupees 6 lakh in compensation for injuries. Victims will be eligible for compensation ranging from 50,000 rupees to 2,50,000. That is depending on the severity of the injury. Now, Kerala is witnessing a sudden surge in cases of the deadly brain-eating amoeba.
The southern state has so far reported 104 cases of amoebic encephalitis, commonly called brain fever, with 23 confirmed deaths. The outbreak comes not long after the state battled a health crisis triggered by the Nipah virus last year. Among the worst affected districts are Kollam and Thiruvananthapuram, while cases have also been rising in Kozhikode and Mallapuram. And in the latest, a 62-year-old man from Kodumbu had been reported to be the victim of the deadly brain-eating amoeba.
Well, caused by a free-living amoeba, the disease infects people when contaminated water enters via the nose and then reaches the brain. Well, globally, the fatality rate for brain-eating amoeba infection stands at 98%, while acanthamoeba-related cases have a mortality rate above 70%.
The disease starts suddenly with severe symptoms like high fever, intense headache, nausea, vomiting and trembling. Patients often show meningitis-like signs such as stiff necks, light sensitivity, confusion, and can quickly slip into a coma. Sadly, even with treatment, the disease often remains fatal.
Well, early recognition is crucial for any chance of survival. Only 11 known survivors of the disease exist in the world. Well, to contain the outbreak, Kerala launched the Water is Life campaign, chlorinating wells and public water sources.
According to the State Health Minister, Veena George, timely diagnosis and treatment with miltefosine have increased survival rates to 24%, far above the global average of under 3%. It has been a volatile week for global markets. Safe haven assets like gold and silver trade at unprecedented all-time highs as investors see risks in other assets.
But what's making investors jittery? Well, that's what this next report decodes for you. Take a look.
The world economy is entering a period of heightened vulnerability as it faces three escalating threats. A report by Bloomberg puts the spotlight on renewed China-US trade tensions, the potential bursting of an artificial intelligence-driven market bubble, and soaring government debt globally. Despite showing resilience through previous rounds of US tariffs and global disruptions, the balance is beginning to look fragile. The US President's plan to impose an additional 100% tariff on Chinese goods from November 1st marks the sharpest escalation in trade policy since the 1930s. While earlier measures were absorbed through consumer spending and corporate adjustments, this new wave raises concerns about inflation, supply chain stress, and reduced global demand. At the same time, the surge in technology stocks linked to artificial intelligence has fueled a speculative boom reminiscent of past market bubbles. According to Bloomberg, investors' enthusiasm for AI innovation has driven valuations to extreme levels, prompting warnings that a sharp correction could trigger broader financial instability. A sudden downturn in tech markets could ripple across sectors, dampening confidence and investment worldwide. Adding to the strain, governments are grappling with unprecedented levels of debt accumulated during years of crisis response and fiscal expansion. Higher borrowing costs and slowing growth have made it increasingly difficult for nations to manage repayment obligations, raising the risk of financial stress in vulnerable economies. Taken together, these three forces form a potent mix of threats to global stability. Bloomberg noted that while growth has so far been underpinned by strong US consumption and optimism about new technologies, the convergence of these risks could mark a turning point for the world economy. Bureau Report WION World is One.
Now, the Dutch government has seized control of Nexperia, a Chinese-owned semiconductor chip manufacturer based in the Netherlands.
The Dutch government invoked never-before-used powers under a Dutch law known as the Availability of Goods Act to take over the company. Now, it is an unprecedented act, a move that the Dutch government itself has described as highly exceptional and justified only because it was crucial to maintaining the continuity of technological knowledge on Dutch and European soil. In a statement, the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs said the move followed acute signals of governance failures inside Nexperia. The Availability of Goods Act allows the government to intervene in private companies to secure critical supplies. Nexperia's semiconductor chips are used in everything from cars to consumer electronics. Authorities warned that losing control over such capabilities could endanger Europe's economic security, particularly in the automotive sector.
Now, Nexperia's parent company, Wingtech Technology, confirmed in a corporate filing that Nexperia has been placed under temporary external management, with all major decisions on assets, operations, and staff frozen up to a year. Now, Wingtech's chairman, Zhang Shuizheng, has also been suspended from his role at Nexperia following the ministerial order. The company, however, clarified that daily operations will continue as normal and denounced the Dutch government's action as excessive interference driven by geopolitical bias.
The Dutch intervention follows China's own curbs on exports of rare earth elements and magnets, materials critical to electric vehicles and clean technologies. Wingtech has faced similar scrutiny elsewhere. It was placed on the US entity list last year for allegedly supporting China's efforts to acquire advanced chip-making capabilities and was previously ordered by Britain to sell a semiconductor facility in Newport. Shifting focus to football now, the Cape Verde Islands have qualified for its maiden FIFA World Cup after defeating Eswatini 3-0 at home.
Now, the island nation is second smallest nation to qualify for the tournament. The Blue Sharks missed their first chance to qualify last Wednesday against Libya when they drew 3-3, but they fought back against Eswatini. Dalon Livramento opened the scoring for the Blue Sharks in the 48th minute. Willie Sembedo doubled their lead 6 minutes later. Stopira scored Cape Verde's third in added time of the second half to spark joyous scenes of celebration at the National Stadium.
Cape Verde tops Group D with 23 points in 10 matches. It has won 7, drawn 2 and lost just once. Visuals on your screens show just how much this win means to them. Take a look.
It means everything to me. It's like since I was a little boy, and I know it's the same for the guys in the dressing room. Since we were all little kids playing football, we dreamed of playing football at the highest stage. And there's no bigger stage than the World Cup. So to do this, to be the first Cape Verdean team here, to lift all the people, the nation, to put them on that stage, there's no better feeling than that.
Honestly, I don't realize for the moment. That's just amazing. Like honestly, I can't explain. It's just a lot of emotion right now. I still don't believe for the moment we're in the World Cup. That's crazy, yeah.
Now, to fully understand the extent of their achievement, one must first learn a bit about the country. Now, the archipelago is located off the coast of West Africa and has a population of approximately 525,000. The country gained independence from Portugal in 1975, and the official language of Cape Verde is Portuguese. Now, psychological thrillers seem to be flavor of the season.
And Julia Roberts and Andrew Garfield brought their film After the Hunt to the BFI London Film Festival recently. More in this next report. Take a look.
Interested in these very complicated people, and what it kind of made me think about my own preconceived notions and how I was kind of moving through the world, and the conversations we were having, they were just so intriguing and exciting to me, and it couldn't be a greater group of people to work with and learn from.
Yeah, and like what people have to tell themselves in order to survive. The truths that you have to solidify in your own psyche in order to, survive.
Yeah.
I think Luca's way of viewing these people and these circumstances. I just was curious what he was going to do with all of us.
And with that, we call a wrap to World DNA for today. But before we go, here is a look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world. Do stay tuned. News and updates follow on the other side.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries.